Sometimes I get a commission. St. Louis was a commission, but it was also something that on the day that I went there to do research for another book, a history book, I was so moved by the city because it was being gutted in the center to make way for, for future rebuilding of the city, for, I guess they got rid of the cast iron district and all these beautiful old buildings along the waterfront. And in a way, big business interests repurpose the city, but they also take away its charm and its character. So I felt, wow, this is an interesting place. I could see right through the city that we're missing so many teeth on the different blocks. You could look 10 blocks into the city and see all these spaces. So that night, Jim Wood, who was the director of the museum, and I met. And after looking at some of my cape work, he said to me, "Can you do this here?" And I said, "I can't believe you're asking." Today, I was walking around thinking, gosh, this is a really interesting city. It's just big enough for me to be able to walk around it and photograph it. So I did that. But really what happens is every couple of years, it's as if one cycle of my work comes to a conclusion. And then I wait to see what is true, what other interests are coming my way. And usually there are 2 or 3 different things, but I sort of, like a divining rod looking for water, I kind of move myself around until something tells me that it's more important to me at this moment in my life than anything else. And when that energy focuses itself on me, I do it. I just believe it, I go with it, and that produces a body of work. Most often, it produces a book too, because I put myself into it 100%. If I commit myself to it, I commit all the way, and I don't really back off. And so each of these bodies of work, whether it's portraits or redheads or landscapes or St. Louis or the Empire State Building or Mount Fuji in Japan or St. Petersburg in Russia. There are places that have invited me in a way because I saw something unusual when I was there. And so I let my instincts guide me. I'll tell you, I never have any kind of anxiety. What should I do next? Why aren't I creative? What am I? I had friends, painter friends, who were just like that. Between shows, they almost on the edge of killing themselves. They were so nervous about having lost their creativity. And I thought to myself, what are you being so fucking neurotic for? It's just work. You'll get there again. Just wait around, have a good time, and then it'll come to you. But don't with the anxiety. Ugh. I just thought, what a waste of energy. And maybe it's because photography is dependent upon the outside world. I don't have to go into a studio and face a blank canvas. I just have to go for a walk with a camera on my shoulder. And suddenly the world says, hello, look at me. And so I felt all along that the gift of seeing has been my motivational force my entire life. All I do is go out for a walk. If I'm ever bored, which doesn't happen very often, but if I am, I just pick up the camera and go out. I'm immediately connected to the real world. And the real world is always offering the weirdest, funniest, unexpected, memorable bits and pieces of itself. And so I get lost in that. And little by little, something happens. For example, some years ago, I was doing a book on Provence that had been commissioned for me and Maggie to do a book on Provence. We had done a book on Tuscany, and it was so successful that the same publisher, Barnes & Noble, invited us to do a book on Provence. And in Provence, I was in Aix-en-Provence, and I went to Cézanne's studio. Have you ever been there?
No.
Okay. So it's his atelier. He built it in like 1900 or 1898. And he painted his painting room himself, and he painted it a dark gray. And I remember standing in that studio. There was a north light window, which was like 16 feet by 12 feet. One gigantic window, all with little frames. And so the light inside was beautiful. But, we live in a time of people in white boxes, right? All the studios we've known have had white walls. Why did Cézanne paint his wall gray? I was so puzzled by this that I went to the docent in charge of the atelier and I said, you see all those objects that Cézanne used in his still lifes? She said, yeah, yeah. I said, I would like to take each one of those and put them on his table and photograph them, large format. And she said, why? And I said, because I want to know why he used gray. There must be a reason. And I think if I make these photographs, I'll be able to understand something about Cézanne. She said, sure, go ahead. She kind of closed the atelier, and I spent 2 days there. I photographed every single object that Cézanne painted. Skulls and bottles and cans and all kinds of crazy things. And so that became something that I pursued only because it shocked me that he was using this gray background. And it led me into making still lives for myself. Now, I had never made still lives before, with the exception of an occasional tabletop when people had finished their dinner, like on the Cape, for example. So it just shows you can be inspired in a split second because a question arises that provokes you to, well, why? And before you know it, 2 years of your life are invested in just doing that and whatever comes from that. So I've been grateful, really, for all these years of being rolled forward like a ball that's always rolling forward into the next space. And by being willing to do it and open-hearted about it, it's given me the gift of new work repeatedly for 62 years.